Mackenzie.
Lamar.
We're covering Kiss Kiss Bang Bang today. Do you remember your first kiss?
So I don't feel like we should count the elementary school playground.
No,
peck
your
things.
first,
You know what I'm saying?
kiss.
Yeah,
When you were
right.
good and kissed. Yeah.
Good and kissed.
To quote that thing you do.
Yeah, my favorite thing about this is that I got in so much trouble because I missed the bus to get this kiss. I remember this to this day.
How old were you when you missed the bus?
I think I was like 11 or 12.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, I don't live close to the school. This was post walking to school. And so it was the last day of school. I also remember it was that drama of like, we're never going to see each other again. It was that energy.
It's now or never. Yeah.
It's now or never. And we were like beating around the bush. Like there's a good break between you get out of class and you have to be on the bus. And we were around this column in the front of the school and just like dancing around it and cautiously sort of holding hands and this whole thing. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to miss the bus. And then, I kissed him. Yep. Cause I don't know. It had to happen. It was like, I already missed the bus. Like we needed to commit to the bit, I'm going to be in trouble.
This was the last day of school. So did your parents have to come pick you up or like what happened?
I think what happened, if I recall correctly, I had friends who did live within walking distance of the neighborhood. And I think I went to my girlfriend's house and just banged on the door and was like, oh my God, I just kissed, name redacted. And I have
follow up.
Blah, blah, blah. And like, we have to talk about this. And also, can your mom drive me home?
Yes. Two-part question.
Yeah. And then I think they did, but it was like hours later. So I was home very late because like her mom wasn't home. It was the whole thing. So I got in so much trouble, but I can tell you it was worth it. It was worth it to miss that bus for sure. How about you?
Mine was, so I think we've been over this on the pod before. I was a surprisingly shy kid, and I was also a good Christian boy for most of my formative years. Mm-hmm. So I don't think my first actual kiss came till I was like 15 or 16, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was a girl who we worked at the same place. And then on the drive home from our workplace, there was a pull off next to a lake. And so for a few nights in a row, when we both left work, we would go hang out there. Just one of us would get into the other one's car and we'd hang out and talk. And fun fact, she had a boyfriend at the time. So I'm not going to name names here. Yeah. But the third night that we did this.
Stealing the ladies,
yeah, so it was just flirt the first couple nights. And then the third night we like made out hardcore. And then a month after that, we were doing the same thing and a cop pulled in and was like, you guys cannot hang out here. So went from being a good Christian boy to
you went from 0 to 100 real quick. Like, this is super not Christian of you. All right. He's like, you know what? If I'm going to go to the dark side, let's fucking go. So
I don't think it's a coincidence that's when I realized, hey, maybe religion isn't for me. I kind of like this other thing.
Is it that important? When it comes right down to it, is it that important?
Yeah.
So was this also your first bang? Is that what you're about to tell me?
That's a story for another day. No, maybe we could do that, but while the opening credits are going, we'll talk.
I was gonna say I don't think we can do the bang bang of it all on the pod. It's not appropriate. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lamar.
And we are wrapping up Val Kilmer month here on the pod. It's been a ride. And this one we decided to go out with one we've referenced maybe 1,257 times. Kiss, Kiss, Bang, Bang.
Yeah. And for as good as all his performances have been this month and as revered as Tombstone is, for example, this might be my personal favorite of Val's performances. He's so good in this.
He's so fucking good. He just totally steals the show throughout the whole thing. Like, we'll get into it, but I feel like I just want to read Val Kilmer's lines for the next hour because they're fucking hilarious. But anyway, so what are we drinking for this one?
Well, as you guys know, we've been naming every drink after the Val characters in these films this month. And so this is the Perry I don't know if we can call it the gay Perry. Are we allowed
I
to
feel like
say
we
that?
can't now, but just know that he's listed in the credits as Gay Perry. Like, y'all should just know that.
And it's for me, it's cool the way we'll get into how it is written into the film, and I think it is with this. I don't want to keep using the word reverence, but like it starts as a joke, but it quickly is just you're like, oh no, this is the character, and this is it's cool to see that this was the first openly gay character that's fronting an action film. That I
Hmm.
think is pretty fucking cool. I know it's what 2005, which is a long time coming,
Yeah.
but for as much as it starts as a punchline, I do think it treats it pretty respectfully throughout the film.
I think it just becomes his full name. You know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah.
comes with a lot of implications with it. And not the most important one is that he's gay. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, this guy will fuck you up. And I love
And
it.
they will work it into the plot. We'll get to that. But all that to say, this is 1.5 ounces of mezcal, 1.5 ounces of Di Serrano, 1.5 ounces of OJ, and then half an ounce of lemon. You shake that up with ice, strain it into a martini glass, and we have the Perry.
The Perry. All
It's a
right.
very Perry drink. I could see him sipping
And
on one
just
of these.
in the martini glass too is so
Yes.
peak
Yeah.
Perry. You know, if you're gonna do a gay Perry, like, he's got to be a martini glass. All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, I did
That's
good.
good.
I
Yeah.
thought I overdid it on the Di Serrano a little bit, but it's actually not
No,
bad.
it's surprise. It's like juicy. I mean, that seems obvious. It's got the OJ and the lemon in there, but I thought the mezcal and the Di Serrano might overpower it. But it's just like a
Maybe
like drinking a really juicy IPA. It's very good.
it is. For some reason, every time you just said juicy, I was so bleh, like
Is that one of those words feeling moist
I
or
don't know.
flush?
I've never had
Or
that experience till just
juicy?
now. It just did not sound appealing for some reason. Anyway,
Maybe it's
okay.
just coming out of my mouth. That's a personal attack.
Sorry, I didn't mean to attack you already. We're only at 5 minutes in. Ah, all right. Well, you guys, it's been a hot minute for this one. But I do think we'll do a quick spoiler free with
Yeah.
the basics, and then we'll dig into the fun stuff about which we are very excited. So this again is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. This was in 2005, so it feels not that long ago, but while you're watching it, you're like, it's been a minute. But not in a bad way. I just mean you notice some things, and you're like, oh, it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
It is 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb and almost exactly the same critics and audience on Rotten Tomatoes, 86% and 87% respectively. So pretty solid agreement for.
That's where I would expect it to fall. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, not to jump ahead. I know I usually do this later, but it didn't make a ton of money. It was literally a $15 million budget and it made $15.8 million. So
And most of that was outside of the United States, right?
right,
Did you read that? Like it
I
was
did.
70% international gross. And I'd read something else that the term kiss kiss bang bang was sort of a foreign term for James Bond and spy films back in the 60s. That's what they
Mm-hmm.
called it in Japan and parts of Europe was, oh, they're kiss kiss bang bang films. And this isn't
Mm-hmm.
the first movie with that title, but I think it makes sense when you hear that oh, it made a bunch of money overseas, but it didn't
Yeah,
really kill in the United States.
it didn't. And I find that an atrocity personally. I think it's so good.
It's ahead
But
of its time. Yeah.
if I think about it, I don't think I saw it in theaters either. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely saw it on DVD later. I mean, I bought it. I want to say I bought it on DVD kind of at random, if I recall correctly, because I was that kid. I think I've told y'all in the past. We didn't have enough movies in our house, so I would just buy movies at random. So I bought one of these, I want to say like 2008, 2007,
Mm-hmm.
2008. And I just bought it and watched it and I fucking loved it. And I've had it ever since. I still have the exact same DVD. So yeah, I don't know how I found it per se, but it was a good find. It was a
Yeah,
solid
I don't
find.
remember. I think I probably got referred to it from The Nice Guys, which I'm sure is in our little credits here today.
That's much later. Yeah. Okay.
But I think I
Interesting.
saw The Nice Guys, and then I might have backtracked. But I like Kiss Kiss
Mm.
Bang Bang kind of more on a personal. I think Nice Guys is a better film, but Kiss Kiss Bang Bang's more fun to me.
I like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang better,
Yeah,
but I do also really like The Nice Guys. But yeah, that's like 2016. So
yeah.
that's been a minute, but it's so good. Anyways, I digress. The director of this film is Shane Black, who, to your point, also directed Nice Guys. So he's written a lot of things, but he really started directing much later in his career. And this is the debut. So, like, for one of his best films to be his first one is pretty incredible. He hasn't done a ton. He's like less than sub 10 films overall, but he did do Iron Man 3 as well, which I think is worth
As
worth a
like a
call out.
favor. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of interesting because like I mean, he definitely put his own spin on it. You know, yes,
Yeah.
these other ones are actiony, but that Iron Man 3 is like I don't know, it's almost the least Marvel-y, especially of the Iron Mans. You know what
And
I mean? Is what I would
it's not
say.
as good as the first Iron Man, but it's better than the second.
Right.
I
It's
enjoyed Iron Man
definitely
3.
better
Yeah.
than the second. And like the wit and the style really comes through and is
Hmm.
very different. And that's more why I say it's less Marvel-y. I don't mean that as something derogatory either. I mean it as a compliment. I think it's really good. So yeah, it's just a different vibe. It's just a different style. He also did The Predator, which I haven't seen.
He did,
Um,
yeah, The Predator, which was the like
yeah.
2019 one. It was fine.
Mhm.
But I wrote down for his history. He has such a unique history. So in 1986, his credit is playing cop in police station in a horror movie called Night of the Creeps. That's
Yeah.
1986. His career starts. In
Have you seen Night
1987,
of the Creeps? Let's just take a
I
minute.
no, but it's in the queue. I will end up watching that probably in October. So a year later, 1987, he has a role in the original Predator, like acting. He's got a part in that, and he writes Lethal Weapon, and that catapults him to writing every Lethal Weapon after that. And I think that shows in this because a lot of the writing and the for his first directing gig, it feels 80s at a lot of times.
Yeah.
So it kind of has that
Yeah.
niche.
Yeah, and that is a great call out. He is the creator of Lethal Weapon, which should tell you everything you need to know about his style and his humor and all the things. And he does a great job.
The
So
only thing I would add to his style and humor for again folks my age is he wrote The Monster Squad, which was a pivotal movie of my childhood. So you can thank Shane Black, everybody.
thank you, Shane Black, for helping mold the man we have before us today. You know, we couldn't have done it without you.
Uh,
All right. Well, also speaking of the writing here, again, he wrote the screenplay. His origin in Hollywood is largely the writer, but he did this off some source material by Brett Halliday, which is called Bodies Are Where You Find Them. I haven't read it. I know nothing about it, but I feel like it's kind of all in the name, you know, really
yeah.
tells you everything you need to know about it,
Yeah,
but I'm
it's like
quite
one of those
curious
loose
to know.
adaptations, but it's like we have to give credit where it's due for the novel, but they changed a lot. So I mean, good for them for paying a few extra writers' fees on this, I guess. Or
Yeah, yeah, totally. As far as cast and crew, we kind of have like a core four-ish here, I would say.
yeah.
And we're going to kick things off, of course, with Mr. Val Kilmer, who, as we have said before, we're going to stick to ones we're not covering. And one of the ones that I almost wish we had covered and is also very actiony, but we didn't, is The Saint. Have you seen The Saint?
I saw The Saint when I was too young to get The Saint. I think I only
Uh,
saw it because I'd
you were
seen
like, I
Batman
don't get
Forever.
what nuclear fission is, and I don't understand the stakes here.
I had seen Batman Forever and then was like, oh, he's in another movie. And then there were no Batmans or Riddlers in that one. I did not have a good time. But now I hear, oh, it's a good movie. I need to go back and rewatch it at some point.
It's actually really, I mean, like it's a cheesy action flick, but it's actually, I think, really well done. And it's one of the ones that shows his range. Even like, I know we purposely selected films this month that like kind of show his range, but that film in and of itself shows his range quite a bit because he plays a spy. And we're talking like a spy who's super leaned into the spy of it all. Like there are wigs and mustaches and accents and all the things. And so it's a very fun Val Kilmer. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend.
Very cool. And then for my final fun facts of Val Kilmer month, as you guys know, I've been throwing in some random ones, but I wanted to point out that he turned down the lead role in Dirty Dancing because he didn't want to be perceived as a hunk, quote
I
unquote.
know.
And also, he didn't even want to do Top Gun, which I think is for people my age what we first saw him in. Like that was the initial Val Kilmer
Iceman,
role.
y'all.
He did
Yeah.
not want to be in Top Gun. He only did it because he was contractually obligated. So yeah.
Which is kind of wild because it's actually not a huge role in the film if you think about it in the terms of screen time. But he steals the show when he's on the screen. He does a really, really good job. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad he did it. I think we're all grateful that he did it. And then we also get in Top Gun Maverick, if you haven't seen it, they do a good job of him incorporating him later in a really respectful way that was actually hard for Val at that time, having lost his voice. And I feel like they did a really good job of handling that. And that's a hard thing to handle. So I think it came through. If you haven't seen it, I think you should watch it for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So Robert Downey Jr., we have covered him at least once. So I feel like we've listed a lot of his stuff, but
We also mentioned on a previous episode that this is 3 years before Iron Man. It's such a weird point in his career where
yeah,
he was out of rehab, but he had done so much damage to his reputation at this point that he was sort of floundering a little bit.
he's
And then
working
he
his way
does
back for
this.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Favreau sees it, and this gets him the Iron Man role. So I think this movie is just super important to the Marvel universe as well.
It is, and it's one of the things that I think you're exactly right in that it leads into some of Tony Stark's like character traits, like the wittiness.
Mhm,
He is
mhm.
not successful at all. It's a wildly different type of character, but the
Yeah.
wit, like he can deliver this in a really strong way. So I think it's really good. But he's done a ton of things. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but he did Zodiac. He plays Paul Avery in Zodiac. I think that's another one that I think is different enough from Tony Stark that it's worth mentioning. I think he does a really good job in that. He also does the Sherlock Holmes ones as well, but I feel like that's a similar kind of character a little bit, but it's still a fun turn on Sherlock Holmes. It's a little bit different. And then another one I wanted to mention was he did Doolittle. Do y'all remember that he did
Yeah,
Doolittle?
Talking to Animals. I don't think I saw it because I think I'd seen the Eddie Murphy Doctor Dolittle first, and I didn't
The
want to sell
reason
it.
I mention this is I want y'all to understand that this is post Marvel. This is post Sherlock. This is in the middle of fucking Marvel. And he was like, you know what I want to do in 2020? I want to do Doolittle. And I was like,
Well, you do
what
one for them, and then you
is
do one for you, right? So he had done
apparently,
Marvel. He's like, this one's for
oh
me.
my
Passion
God.
project.
I was like, absolutely. Anyway, I feel like he should unsubscribe from that on his list. I was like, really? I went through it and I was like, in the middle of your peak. This was not we weren't clawing back from anything. And we were like, let's do Doolittle. That was a choice. Anyway. Also Michelle Monaghan, who I think is really underrated actually. She's in a lot of things and she's usually supporting or maybe like second lead in a lot of things. And I think she can play a pretty decent range, but a lot of people have probably seen her most notably in the Mission Impossibles, where she's like the actual love of his life and they
Yeah.
can't make it work. And then he has to, whatever. But she still is recurring because he always kind of keeps an eye on her, even though they're not together anymore. So she's in those. So some Tom Cruise crossover here twice at least.
She was in the first season of True Detective. She was really good in that. She was Woody Harrelson's wife in that. And then Gone Baby Gone. And then recently she was in Maxine. And it was cool to see her, in this phase of her career playing a cop in that.
I haven't seen that. I've heard good things, but I haven't seen that yet. So.
Not as good as I didn't like it as much as X and Pearl.
Okay.
It was my least favorite of the three, but it was fine.
Okay. Well, anyways, she's a fair amount of coverage. I think she was like over 50 something films. So she's been in a lot of stuff. So go check her out. And then I want to close this out with Corbin Bernsen, who has, I call this out for a reason, 274 acting credits. This motherfucker has been in everything. And I was trying to think of what I have seen him in. And I cannot think of the thing that I am picturing him in. And I think it's because he's in everything. Because you're just like, well, he's been in this, he's been in that, he's been in everything.
Yeah, he walks the line, I think, between character actor and leading actor. I feel like he has the face, or at least when he was younger, I would buy him as like the lead cop in a film or the main character, the love interest. And then eventually I think he reached an age where it was like, oh, he's just kind of a bit character in different things. He can play a bad guy. He's very flexible. I remember him from Major League, both of those films, the baseball movies with Charlie Sheen. But that was my first experience with him.
Yeah, Major League, I think, was my first experience with him as well. He was also, I could be totally making this up, but I think he was in the OC. And I feel like I'm visualizing that, but I could be wrong. But anyways, he's been in a ton of TV, ton of movies. They even use some of his old footage in this film. So because he's been in so many things. So yeah, chances are you've seen Corbin Bernsen in a thing or five at least. All right, guys, quick plot summary before we get into...
Can I shout out really quick 3 more cast people that I just thought was worth
Oh, yeah, of course.
I do want to call out Larry Miller as Dabney Shaw, only because I feel like this guy has made a career out of playing a dad. So 10 Things I Hate About You or a million other things. He always plays this father figure. I feel like he's been in his 50s his entire life. And then you have Ariel Winter from Modern Family and her very first theatrical role playing the young version of Harmony. And then finally,
Mm-hmm.
and I even after I read this, I didn't believe it, but you have Lawrence Fishburne playing the bear in the beer commercials of this, and I still can't hear his voice in that cameo.
I cannot hear it. Like
No.
and they play it at least 3 times and I do not hear it, but that is hysterical that he was like, yeah, I just got to shove in here. I just wanted,
Sure, why
he just
not?
wanted,
Yeah.
he just wanted to hang out with Shane for the day or something.
That's
Like, they were
probably it.
just chilling and hey, do this. Oh, those are good little cameos. All right, homies, quick plot summary. After being mistaken for an actor, a New York thief is sent to Hollywood to train under a private eye for a potential movie role. But the duo are thrown together with a struggling actress into a murder mystery. Dun, dun, dun.
That's accurate. Yeah.
That's not a spoilery. I'm so proud of
Yeah.
IMDb this week. They did great.
Yeah. It's like, here's the first 10 minutes of the movie. Let's go.
Yeah. You done good, kid. We should be a way to like +1 their summaries versus like downvote them.
Yeah.
That
Cabin
was
in the
one
Woods.
That was one of the better
Fix it.
ones. All right, homies. If you haven't seen it before, now's the time. Turn around. Don't drown. It's spoiler time.
So starting off, what makes you, when you say, and let's do the condensed version because we're going to talk about this for like 45 minutes, but what do you love about this movie?
Oh my God, so many things. Okay, time crunch. I love the narrator vibes. I think they do a really good job of the narrator. Like literally my first note is welcome to LA. I'll be your narrator. It's just that fourth wall break, but it's in a really good way. And this is I think this was the beginning of a resurgence of the narration vibes in Hollywood and TV. And like we go through phases of that, I think, and other ones do it better than others. And this is one that I think breaks that wall really well. Obviously the cast is incredible. I like the way they break up the story. You get these really clear delineations in terms of story structure. Like day one, we're dealing with this. Here's how we got here. But it calls out the things. It's very self-referential and meta because the things that are hard to work in timeline wise, they purposely cut them in and go, this is really bad narrating, or this is a callback to earlier. And he just announces it and literally cuts the film. And it's just a fun way to break it up and be like, listen, this structure is associated with this character and his all over the placeness. And they did a really good job of, I think, tying that together. But it's just funny and it's a good time and it's a mystery and it's sexy and it's fun and it's,
this movie +1 to everything you just said, because this movie, it feels like a 2005 Lethal Weapon film, but it has this new twist on it where you have this unreliable narrator and it's got more of a mystery sort of noir feel to it. But it's, at the end of the day, it's kind of a buddy cop movie with a love interest and murder and like action and whatnot. But the narrator elements are brilliant. I think Shane Black, for his first directorial gig, kills it. And the writing, I love when they call out sort of the why is that scene in the movie? That's weird, right? Like they're telling you what you know as a viewer. They think they understand you've seen this movie before in some way, right?
Yeah, they know that they're following kind of a structure, and where they break the structure or the formula a little bit, they call it out. And I think they do it in such a way that's really intriguing, where you're like, wait a minute, it calls attention almost to things that they want to call attention to, but they don't have necessarily have a cleaner way to do it. And so, I think it's a really interesting film. I also think, fun fact, he was trying to make a rom-com. So, so like he had just done The Long Kiss Goodnight, which is just an action, flick. And so, and if I recall correctly, he had applied to be a member of the Academy at this point and was rejected and was super bummed about it. And so he was trying to make like a rom-com to get back in the good graces of Hollywood or whatever. And it just slowly evolved from a story of these two quirky kids from LA into he was like, fuck it, I got to throw in an action movie. I got to do this.
To be dead bodies.
He was right. He was just slowly like, you know what? I can't make just rom-com. Like I can't make a straight rom-com. I am who I am. And then he committed to the bit. And I just love that evolution of this story, because this was originally supposed to be a cutesy rom-com. And here we are with the murder mystery that's like sassy as fuck.
Yeah, and the rom-com components, I'm not gonna like sully it by calling it a rom-com, but the romantic element in this is so different than anything I've seen. I don't know that
You
I
get
love
no
every piece.
satisfaction from it.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
whole
just like, wait,
tease.
is this destiny? Because it just seems like she's like, oh yeah, I'll throw a hand job your way. It's no big deal. Just like, I like the Harmony character because she feels so different than anything we've seen. There's elements where she doesn't feel real in any, and I know every character in this movie is an exaggeration and is sort of a caricature in some way, but Harmony of all the things feels, I'm like, who goes to a party, is reading a detective novel and just passes out at the party? That just seems like so weird to me right
Do you
off
know
the bat.
my favorite thing that you just said is that I
Mm.
literally in my notes have this would be me in a corner at a party reading a book.
Reading a book,
Like,
sneaking off. Right, where's the
like
bookshelf
if
in
I
this
saw
place?
somebody at a great library and I walked in and there was a book there, I would 100% bust it out. Fun fact, when I was a kid, I used to get in trouble with my parents for reading books at parties. So
Well, okay, so
that's
maybe
not
that's,
the least
you know,
relatable part for me, I would say. But the passing out in places unplanned, now that part I get.
yeah. It does have that cool payoff though, where we have the guy. I'm not cool, quote unquote, but the fact that the guy is like, touching her leg, and then Harry comes in and gives him this tough guy talk, but it cuts immediately to him getting his ass
Get his
kicked
ass beat.
in
But
the
that's the
funniest
thing
way.
is
He's getting like
so
schoolyard punched at this range. It's not like an
and
action
he
movie
has no
aspect.
defense. Like that's the favorite part of like he talks so much shit. And I think this
Yeah.
is so funny in a number of ways when you really break it down because he is being really honorable. He is kind of an honorable
Yeah.
character for a basic thief. He's a pretty honorable character and he has such a problem with at this point he doesn't really know who she is, right? He's not defending her because he knows her. He's defending her because this is fucking inappropriate.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who will say something and we love that about him, but he will try to talk his way out of a thing and he can't back it up at the end of the day. And so he gets his ass beat, but his spiel is great, right? His spiel
Yeah. It's
on the
super
right
tough guy.
guy would be intimidating enough to just disengage. But
Yeah.
it's funnier that this guy doesn't and just beats the shit out of him and he can't defend himself. But it's an indicator of what a good guy he is deep down. So that's good.
Well, so there's two things I want to touch on there. Number one, I love the unearned confidence of the Harry character. I feel like I get
Every
why this
mediocre
got
white man we've
him.
ever met. You know what I mean? Sorry.
I mean,
Sorry.
we're crushing it, guys. We're doing great up there. But like the confidence that he has here, I get why he got the Tony Stark role. But at least Tony Stark is very, very intelligent and
Right.
can
He's
also rap.
genius. Yeah. Yeah.
The second thing though that I wanted to touch on that you sort of referenced was at some point I started writing down in this all of the, I don't want to use the term white knight, but all of the pieces in this where Harry is very protective of women in some way. He's kind of giving these motivational speeches to her of like, hey, this isn't okay that a guy touches your boob while you're sleeping. Like, you shouldn't be okay with that. And how did that land for you as a woman? Because I think that some of it, I think it comes to a head when he sees the Shannon Sossman character get killed in front of him, and then he just sort of like snaps and is like, "You were completely violent toward a woman," and he shoots the guy like 6 times.
Yeah.
I think it has a good payoff, but how does the rest of that sort of dialogue through the film work for you?
Well, here's the thing. I think two things can be true, right? She can be undervaluing herself and what she has to offer and letting people treat her poorly because of all kinds of factors that we don't get into and are not our place to judge, right? That can be true. And then what can also be true is that he cares about her and doesn't want that to keep happening. But then he takes it too far in the way that he mansplains to her situation, right? Like that's the part of the conversation where it tips like he's trying to hype her up, right? Of like, it's a big deal when this happens and you should make people work for you and your attention and treat you right and blah, blah, blah. Like that's a complimentary thing. And then it goes into, I'm lecturing you. I don't know your experience and I'm telling you how to behave as a woman. That goes too far. But I think they both have their reasons. It's not communicated well to each other. And I think that's intentional. But yeah, I wouldn't, if I were exactly Harmony, I would not appreciate the way in which this was delivered to me, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to get a female perspective on that because I think they're going pretty hard on he is a good guy. He wants women treated well.
Yeah.
He even does the thing when they find the body and he pulls the dress down because he doesn't want her exposed. And I'm like, that they don't. they don't, it does come back later as a plot element. They
Yep.
explain it, but I did think that was a nice touch because it takes like 30 minutes for them to explain why, not why he did that, but for it to tie into the plot. It's just something interesting.
But I do think, yeah, I think it is to inform that he is a good guy, but it's a little lectury. And I think the other thing too is that we do have to place this 20 years ago slightly,
Yeah.
which I think does matter in terms of like the Me Too movement and things like that, not to go down a whole rabbit hole, but I do want to be clear that this is pre Me Too. The open conversation and awareness of microaggressions and sexual assault and treatment of women in a passive way as an ornament or as submissive or what have you to the patriarchy and men in general had not happened in a real way. So a lot of these little things that happened to her, she has normalized.
Yeah.
She has normalized. And that is how you survive those situations, right? I have been in exceedingly similar situations that I let slide, and anybody who's met me would be like, what? No way, you would never, because it wasn't talked about. You didn't push back on it. You didn't make a big deal out of it because you didn't want to be that person. So I think we have to put it in context of the time. Like, he wants her to care, and I get that, but she's not in a place or a time where she can make a big deal out of these things, especially as an aspiring actress.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We didn't even. Yeah. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Like, but
yeah,
I think in some ways this movie's ahead of its time with that dialogue and whatnot. But it is a little heavy-handed at times. There's also one line on every time I rewatch it. It's a little too cavalier for me at the very beginning when he's explaining Harmony's backstory. And he says she has a younger sister, and then he says, "But Daddy was going at her every night," and shows the dad pick the daughter.
yes.
And that line just crushes me.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that
sounded different.
That's devastating. You're totally right. I'm struggling, and I was struggling when I was watching it again to remember what that reminds me of. But it is like this, I don't know. It's like some dude telling a story with a cocktail in his hand by a fire and saying this like horrible thing very passively. And I'm not placing the visual that it gives me, but it's not taking it seriously, and it's saying something horrible and just moving past it. So I agree. I think that's an important call out, because it does come back multiple times. It comes back in a very serious way at the end of the reasoning of this, of how this woman dies, right? And yeah, they just downplay it. And also it's not reflective well on Harmony, because she just has to leave. And it's totally understandable. I'm not saying it's not understandable that she has to leave, but she does leave her sister in this really terrible situation. And it's kind of like glossed over almost.
I mean, we talked earlier about how it feels very 80s in the way that Shane Black is writing this script. Other elements of it feel like hard-boiled detective stuff with the obvious allusions to it. And that specific line of dialogue and the way Robert Downey Jr. delivers it sounds like the way a detective in a 1950s film would do it.
Yeah, I was just about to say that you're right. This is like a very 90s, 40s neo-noir. This is a Humphrey Bogart explaining to somebody in the office like the case that he just is working on.
And that's like the tasteful way of saying, "Oh, Daddy was going at her every night." Like, it just, I could see how when you're in a different decade, maybe that would be the least offensive way of saying that. But in 2005, I would have just liked them to switch that.
Yeah, I think it's a good call out. But I do think, while we're on that, like the flashbacks on the whole are well handled. Yeah. They're well shot. Yeah. They have like there's a different color tone to them. Mm-hmm. And there's a different look and a style to them. And you get this sense of who these characters were as really young children and how they've come back together. I think it's so funny when they meet each other, like after he's gotten his ass beat, and then they meet in the bar and she's just fucking with him. Like, that's such a fun scene of like, she's just like, why me? I just love that she held his ass to the fire. For somebody who is being lectured about how she treats men, she called him out right away, right? Or lets men treat her, I should say, rather. And she calls him out right away of like, why me? Why not her? She's super cute.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that call out of like, explain yourself. Like, I'm annoyed, I'm over it, whatever. But come to find out, she knows who he is. And it's a fun part of that bit of how long did she know who he was? Like, when did the fucking with him start in
Yeah,
terms of
like
she
was it when
knows
he
him?
said my name is Harry and she went, "Oh shit." Yeah.
Right. Because you also haven't seen them even in their teen years where they're supposedly still friends, right? You
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen that yet. So you don't really know that they, like, why would they recognize each other at that
Right.
point? And I do think that's one slight weakness there of you're like, well, why would he recognize you? You were a little girl when he last saw you. But they do kind of close that loop. But I think that whole scene where they kind of kick off and are trying to feel each other out and they bond right away and they have these like comments about the other bartenders and that just
Brazilian Billy
reminds
Bob Thornton. Yeah.
Brazilian Billy Bob Thornton and Native American Joe Pesci and
Yeah.
they're so funny and I just like I think back to many a bar banter that I've had and I'm like that would be a great meet cute. You know what I mean? If we are doing a rom-com, this is a good one. This is a good one.
They apparently had written a bunch of examples of those potential lines of dialogue for the celeb lookalikes or variants of celebs, and then Shane Black just lined up the extras for that bar scene and was like, "Okay, you're Native American Joe Pesci." So it was like luck of the draw of who was going to get to be in that scene.
Hey, that's how you keep the budget down. You know what I mean? You just have a lot of options and then you're nimble and you're ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've dug into a lot of what we love and then a couple of the drawbacks, but let's get to why we're all here. So let's talk about Perry and how incredible Val Kilmer is in this.
I have so many lines written down of just
Just
how
dialogue jokes. Yeah.
fucking gay Perry hilarious dialogue. I just love so I have it again in all caps when he gets entered into the mix, which is at that first party where Harry's getting his ass beat. And he's like, "Oh, you're gay." And he's like tells him he's like, "Gay Perry." Like I know what you're going to say. And I just have in all caps, "Gay Perry." He's here. He's so great. He is just unapologetically who he is. So let's just talk about that for a quick second. He is gay. He makes fun of his own gayness repeatedly with some words we don't love, right? He does use the anti-gay F word about himself multiple times. He makes fun of the gay community multiple times. It's funny because it doesn't change his gayness, right? Like he really leans into it on multiple occasions. It's like he's just joking around. So it ends up not being super offensive throughout, but his whole energy, he's so funny, he's so deadpan. I love in that first party where he's trying to say bye and give him a tip of how to go find Harmony, and for whatever reason Harry can't like hear him right or whatever, and it turns into this absurd conversation about monkeys, about flying monkeys, and he's like, yeah, God, needy little fucker. And he just the way he handles the whole conversation is like, I have no patience for you. I have no patience for your stupidity. I will just roll with how dumb you are and I will make you feel like an idiot at every moment. And I think it's great. Like if I could walk around talking like Abe Harry, that would be awesome. That would make my life.
It's the ultimate amount of sass, and he
Just
knows
fucking
exactly who
sass.
he's dealing with in Harry. I think he reads every character in this movie better than everyone else. And I love when at some point Harry's like, "What do you think, I'm stupid?" And he's like, "Yes, I think you're
Yes.
stupid." Just spells it out to him, or like, "Go home
No,
and look
he
up idiot in the
literally,
dictionary. What'll I find? A picture of me? No, the definition of the word idiot, which you
which you
fucking
fucking
are."
are.
Great line of
It's
dialogue.
so great. My other favorite one you just alluded to was he's like, "Do you think I'm stupid?" And he says verbatim, this is the only one I wrote out all the way. "I think you wouldn't know how to feed yourself if you didn't flap your mouth so much. Yes, I think you're stupid." Like I just he just so
Yeah.
commits to it. There are so many good ones throughout. He's like he does that line where he's walking through the bar and she tells everybody to raise their hand if they hate Harry. And he's like obedient little bitches too. And then somebody throws a glass at him and he like ducks.
Yeah.
It's so
So
smooth.
nonchalant. I wrote Val is the perfect bitch in this. He is so fucking good.
He is so fucking good and he's so fucking over it. But he also will like he still lets Harry hang on. You know what I mean? Like I think it's
Yeah.
like he's a real dick about it, but he has a soft spot for you, which I don't know, feels like all my gay best friends too, of like they will roast you and make you feel like shit and tell you like what a slut and an idiot and a whatever you are. Meanwhile, they're like, I love you, I miss you so
You're my best
much,
friend. Yeah.
you're my best friend. So it's like it's such a vibe, and it's so, and he's so sassy. It's just such a compliment to this. He's such a foil to Harry and his stupidity throughout.
Yeah.
It
I
works very
wrote
well.
down Shane Black. If he can't write anything else well, he can write a buddy cop, like two middle-aged men bickering, and in this case it happens to be
Yeah.
a gay man and a straight man, but it vibes the same. It lands.
Well, like to your point, Nice Guys is the same, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
similar energy. Lethal Weapon's a similar
Yeah.
energy. He can totally buddy cop it up. And this is a very different dynamic in that this is this, but it's this gay macho guy, which we do need to touch on. Like he is a macho guy. He is wealthy, he's successful, he presents not as straight, but like he is not overtly flamboyant in any way, so he can pass in whatever situation that he's in, and he will shoot you, he will threaten you, he will talk shit. So he's like, to your point earlier, the star of this action flick, and it's not typical for a gay man to be the leading star of an action flick, and I think that's such a great way to turn that buddy cop dynamic on its head.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And as I said at the beginning, before we started getting into spoilers, they factor it into the plot. There is a line of dialogue late in this. First off, I think all of the stuff we talked so much about how Harry, treats women, respects women, and I think by having Perry be a gay character, it opens up a lot of possibilities for the way that he's viewing the situation. And again, he just has a
Mm-hmm.
different perspective than everyone else in this film. But at the end, there is the torture scene where he manages to sneak a gun but in his crotch, and he says homophobes don't check there. Like they work it into the plot of the film and how they escape this situation, because in other films in the 80s it would just be like they broke the chains and got out of the thing, but in
Yeah.
this it makes fucking sense.
Right. You're like, how are they going to get out of the situation? There's no way for them to get out of the situation. They're tied up. And then here, being gay worked for the best. You know what I mean? Like, and I
Yeah.
just also love, I don't know what kind of commentary this is from Shane Black or what, but I love that he had two tiny pistols, and
Yeah.
one was in his pants and the other one was in his car. And
Yeah.
I just think it was because he's already lost one, a very nice one, by the way, that his
Yeah.
mom got him for $2,000, which I was like, damn, for a little two-shotter. And one of his other great lines is like about, it reminds me of the gays because they're only good for two shots and then you got to move on to the next thing or whatever he says. He's just like
There's
in a state of constant roasting, and it's great.
And there's, again, I'm going to keep using that word. Shane Black treats this script with respect and these characters with respect. And I'm not trying to be the straight guy who's like patting ourselves on the back for being forward thinking about or progressive about this. But I like that there is like a line / joke written into the script where Harry says something about dressing up as a woman, and Perry says, "That's cross-dressing, you imbecile. Most of those guys are straight. They love their kids." Like that is
Right. Happily married
informed.
men. Yeah.
It's just something you don't expect to get from a film like this.
And I just love like even how he's presenting at that time, right? He's in a robe, he's like got this turtleneck, and he's even in the hospital with his, he's been shot and he's got a cane. He's still classy and sassy. And I just love his whole energy at that time. And yes, he like doesn't let you get away with stuff. Some of the grammar stuff throughout is some of my favorite, both from him
The badly
and
and
Harmony.
yeah.
Badly, but he's like, well, badly is an adverb. He's like, badly is an adverb. Who taught you grammar? Get out. Vanish.
Every time I watch this, I try to remember to like grammar check it, because I think that they're both in the right. The people that are correcting him in both situations, like when they're
They
using it
are,
as an
because it's
adverb.
a misuse in one situation and it's used correctly in the other situation, and he tries to correct it because he just learned this thing about badly 2 days ago, and so now he's got to share his knowledge and he uses it wrong. And so
Yeah.
and I was like, this would be me in both scenarios, like correcting your grammar in a bar and also correcting your grammar and telling you to get the fuck out of my car. I was like, the sass across the board is my favorite thing.
With like the story in general, I wrote this down for, I know we have at least a couple of listeners that have specifically told me they listen to our episodes before they watch movies. Like it sort of motivates them whether to watch it or not, which I cannot relate to. I want to watch anything spoiler free. But for those people out there who are not hearing this and are thinking, oh, I'm going to watch this because they're raving about it, I wrote down that the first time I watched this, the mystery itself was a little hard for me to follow. There's a lot going on. They even address the fact that it's kind of two scenarios that are going to tie together by the end.
Yeah.
But I wrote down that even on rewatch, the mystery is, it's not written how I would write it to make it make the most sense, but the film's so fucking funny and charming that it doesn't matter. I'm still having a great time by the time it ends.
It does all still come together. I think the thing that confuses the mystery narrative is the fact that we don't know if Harmony's sister actually was murdered or took her own life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the bringing everything together really hard, right? Of like, why would someone try to kill her in this context? It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And so I think, but they do explain it at the end, to your point. But I think that's the brief, like, this confuses the mystery narrative a little bit. And then you find out why. And it's in this, like, Harry does explain it in a way
Yeah.
that's very clear at the end of she sees what she thinks is incest after her terrible experiences as a child. And she can't, it feels like it's everywhere to her and she can't live with that. And it makes perfect sense at that time. But Harmony's still convinced she was murdered. And there's still these other question marks about like what's happening with the case on the whole. And I do think it follows the flow of some of these, like, you know, like they say, like
detective novels,
these 5-cent detective novels kind of things of like, that's kind of what they do, where it just like they slap everything together at the end and go, don't worry, we figured it out for you. Here it is. And somebody literally explains it. That's very neo-noir film too, of like, again, a Humphrey Bogart in a dark room explaining to you at the end of what happened with his case. And that's kind of how they close it out here in the form of Perry a little bit.
Yeah, I'm getting vibes of when I watched The Maltese Falcon back in December with you. And it was like, wait, like I like mysteries where if you're paying close enough attention, you can at least have a guess of what's happening. And then when you go back and watch, you're like, oh, they had hints throughout the whole thing. This feels more like one of those older detective novels or movies where it's like you can't really figure it out. You just kind of got to sit back and relax. One of the things that confused me, I think, on the first watch was there's 3 dead female bodies in this. There's the sister who you just mentioned. There's the daughter of the Harlan character, who is the
Victoria
girl that they initially
Dexter,
find.
yeah.
And then eventually there's the Shannon Sossamon character who was sort of pretending to be Dexter's daughter. So I think the first time through, I didn't put together that the sister and this other girl were 2 different people. And now there's this other girl involved and she's pretending to be this one. But it was a little convoluted the first time through. It makes more sense on rewatch.
Yeah, I do think it's one that you have to kind of watch a second time to like really appreciate all the different phases of it. I think it's interesting to note though too that all the characters, like these characters that die throughout that we are concerned with are these women, right? It's Victoria Dexter and it's Allison Ames, aka Harmony's younger sister, and then it's also Shannon Sossamon's character. And I think it's interesting to see that they all pass away, that nothing comes really to fruition with Harmony and Harold. And the kiss of it all is Perry and Harry. And I need
I didn't even put that together, yeah.
to appreciate that moment for me of like the kiss of this kiss bang bang is Perry and Harry. And they are the happy ending. You know what I mean? Like they end up together. We don't get a hint. I just love that upturn on like this rom-com energy and vibe, and even this mystery story of at the end of the day, how does it all wrap up? And it's like they are the happy ending, these 2 dudes. And this other story doesn't really wrap up in that way. It's not a romantic ending to it at all.
I agree with that. And Harmony is such a, like I said, unique character, see, especially in this type of film. She doesn't feel like just, oh, she's the female love interest. She's very independent. She's doing her own thing. She's investigating. She's smarter than Harry, like every character in this movie. She's clever. She's quippy. She's sexual. And it's such a hard thing for me to get a read on of, is this a girl that exists that just goes over to a good friend's house, strips naked, gets in bed, and it's like, well, you can sleep here if you want to, or you can sleep on the couch, and is like cuddling with him, comments on the fact that he has an erection, is like, I'll give you a hand job. Like, is this some weird male has dreamed this girl up, or is this something that actually it gets so hard to read her character?
I think it's supposed to be, right? Like, and I agree with you. I don't think like I know a lot of women with aspects of this person. I don't know a
Yeah,
woman with all of these
all of them.
aspects of this person. You know what I mean? And so, and I see parts of me in her and many, many things not, right? Like you just don't really fully identify with her. And I think you're not supposed to, right? I think they allude to it earlier where Harry's like, God, these women in LA, they're so different. And he goes off on like kind of a slightly problematic rant. Do not get me wrong. But
Yeah.
he does this thing about how women sleep with, you know, men versus the way men sleep with women. And that in and of itself is really problematic, but I think it does allude to this caricature of this LA woman, right? This aspiring actress, this woman who's like relentlessly ambitious, but also is having to work 5 different parties in a night to just get, you know, pay the rent kind of thing and get through the day, and is not successful and not famous yet, but just making her life
What
out
does he
here
say? It's like God took America by the East Coast and shook it,
and
and
shook
all the
it,
sane women held on. I
held
like that
on.
line. I don't like the one about sleeping around, but
No, and that one's very funny, but you're also like, harsh, sir. But you see her in these contexts again, she's in these crazy outfits and she's like getting naked in his bed and she like doesn't seem to care about sex at all. Her boobs or her bra are out in almost every single scene, right? Like she, I think, is supposed to be a caricature and not a real person, you know? And I think that's also why they don't end up together, right? Like they're not, she's no longer a real person. She moved out here and she became this different person, this other caricature at the end of the day.
I do like that it cuts from them finally about to have their romantic moment to she's like, I got to tell you one thing. And then they're
Right.
arguing. And the Joe Chutney of like, you slept with Joe Chutney. And she says, he looked sad. That was her reason.
Okay, first of all, it's Chuck Chutney. And I need you to understand that because the name itself is indicative to Perry that this man is gay. He was like, I'm
No,
sorry,
it's definitely Joe Chutney.
it's Chuck Chutney.
No. I'm gonna Google this right now, live on the pod.
It's Google it now. I want you all to stand by as Lamar gets to learn that it's Chuck Chutney.
This says the YouTube says Chook. Chook Chut
No, it does
CHOOK.
not, sir. It says Chuck Chutney, and
Chook
he is gay.
Chutney.
It is such a triggering moment for Perry. It's so funny because he's like, I'm sorry, did you say Chuck Chutney? And he's like, yeah, Chuck Chutney. He goes, oh yeah, he's gay. And he just like walks off and does his little camera moment when they're staking out the cabin. Yeah.
It does.
He's a
Okay,
gay
so when I look up the script and whatnot, it does say Chook. It says CHOOK. Chook Chutney.
It's
But I guess they
definitely
say Chuck. But I'm not the only one because they're WordPress.com. It's like you slept with Joe Chutney. So I'm not the only one who hears Joe every time. I did not watch
so
it
you
with
know
subtitles.
WordPress.com is like built by individual people, right? Anyways,
Well, there's at least one other person in the world,
there's one other
like
person in the
me.
world who misheard this. All I need you to know is that Chuck Chutney equals a gay man just from his name, according to Perry. That's what I thought was so funny. As he heard that, he's like, "Yeah, he's gay." Like immediately, and so it's just that much funnier that she slept with a guy who's going to turn out to be gay, maybe. And
That is,
she
yeah.
broke down their friendship over this guy that was his best friend. Also, like, would you really admit that right before you're about to get hooked up with the guy, maybe, or
I mean,
whatever it
honesty's
is?
the best policy. So she did break a promise to him. But I love that hard cutaway after all of that research on my part. But I feel like I'm in like a blue black dress, white gold dress situation right now because I've heard Joe Chutney every time I've watched this film.
How
But
have you
anyway,
heard that? Do you not watch things with subtitles? I need you to like I
no,
watch it with subtitles and it says Chuck Chutney
I
also.
use my 40-year-old ears, which apparently is a mistake. But
It's
I
better than
also
my 36-year-old ears, probably, but I need subtitles and it says Chuck Chutney.
But I do like a couple minutes later when she calls him with like new intel on the case and is giving
Yeah.
him all that. He's like, "Okay, be safe. You slept
You
with
slept with Chuck Chutney. Yeah. Yeah. And he just hangs up. Also,
Yeah.
like, would you be no, real talk, two things. I will say I don't know that I would confess that at that moment. Maybe ever, if I'm being honest. Some things I don't think people need to know, right? It's like a private decision. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard sell. I don't know if I'm like a liar because of that or what. But in that particular moment, I don't know that I would share that. In that moment, if she shared that, would you kick her out? She is half naked in your bed, ready to go. She admits this thing. Are you for real gonna kick her out the door and then be really resentful?
Well, we're meant to believe, right, that, and I think all the dialogue, it's not even that we're meant to believe, but all the dialogue and even the narration would indicate that this is his dream girl that he
Totally.
wants to fall in love with, not just sleep with, which is why he's so
Sure.
ambivalent when she's like, "Oh, I'll just give you a hand job. Like, it's not a big deal." Or, "Oh, you touched my boob, no big deal." Like, he wants her to have feelings for him.
Right.
So when she does say this thing about she broke this promise from years past, it hurts him. Like, I get he doesn't just want to sleep with her; he wants to be with her. So I get why he's upset.
That's not what I asked, by the way. I asked if
Would I
you would
kick
kick
her
her
out when
out.
she's I would probably go sleep on the couch. I wouldn't kick her out, and I would
And then
just be angry.
slowly end up back in the bed when she like comes and sucks up with you. He's like, there's still a shot of him in the hotel room, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I will say we kind of have. I mean, we've talked about the character a lot, but I think Michelle Monaghan crushes it in this role. I think she's so charming and likable and
Yes.
funny. I don't know how many. She's probably not the only one, but I don't know how many other actresses could kind of pull off all these different personality traits.
I don't think so. I mean, I think she does a really good job, and she's adaptable and funny, and like they do have chemistry. So like you kind of want it to happen, but it's funnier that it doesn't. But I do think we have to touch on the moment where it all comes to a head. The climax
Yeah,
has happened, and shit has gone down, and people have been shot, including Perry. And as far as we can tell, he is dead.
and he's
And
bleeding
that
out of his mouth.
he's bleeding out of
He
his
gives
mouth.
him
He's like
CPR,
trying
and
to give him
all this
CPR.
blood comes out. Yeah.
Right. This is not a great sign, you guys. This is not a good indicator of life. And my favorite thing is that Harry is like, listen, the studio is paranoid about a downer ending. He has his like heart to heart with you at the end of the film. He's like, I also don't get it, whatever. But I love that this is such an homage to Shane Black's own career, because he did that twice with Lethal Weapon 2 and The Long Kiss Goodnight. He had to change the endings for the studio. And I love that he like preempted them in this just meta kind of way. Like, I know
Yeah.
what you're going to do. I can't fucking kill him.
And
So
that
here
line
we
of
go.
dialogue of, well, why not just bring them all back? And everyone that died in the movie is coming in, and Abraham Lincoln and Elvis are there. That is a great bit. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. I think that the epilogue gets a little dark, but I think it's a necessary scene when Perry goes and talks to Harmony's dad and is kind of giving him
Yeah.
what for, even though he's on his way out. But I feel like that moment is the right amount of dark. There is a villain in this. There's multiple villains in this film, and this is the worst one of all. And he needs to get some kind of comeuppance, or at least get called out for how shitty he was.
I love this comeuppance. However, it could be more. That's
Yeah,
actually my complaint about it, is that they are not overt enough in what exactly happened, right? Like this guy, my takeaway from that is like it is exactly the punishment he deserves, if not worse.
yeah,
And but I don't know that he knows that he has been fully caught out. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. He knows that this guy thinks that he's a bad guy, and there is no verbatim call out of like, I know what you did to your daughter, right?
yeah,
As soon as the guy says, I buried my daughter today, be like, and he goes into that monologue about it, you buried her 20 years ago. I wanted
yeah.
more from that, of like, you need to be explicit, and he needs to explicitly feel the pain and the guilt at this moment. But I do think it's a good confrontation. It's a good amount of dark for what happened. It acknowledges this thing at the beginning that it needs to acknowledge, but I could have even got more from it. We could have done a little bit more from it.
It was a decision to have him be as elderly as he was in that scene. I feel like if they had casted younger, you could have had an actual, oh, he's getting arrested, or
I
he
think
kills
I'm a
him. Like,
heartless monster, maybe, because I don't give a fuck. Like, I just don't give a fuck. I also, like, just think about it, like, put a
well,
Nazi up there. I'm serious.
it's
Like,
not that I
put a
don't
Nazi,
think that he
like,
should die. It's that I think it's a worse punishment. Maybe they could have called it out and been more directive, like, we know you're a piece of shit. The world is
that's
going to
what I
know
mean.
you're a
I just
piece of
want
shit.
somebody to
And
tell
then you
him.
can die alone and
Right.
just slow death, as opposed to killing him,
Right. I'm not saying kill him. Like, don't kill him, but tell
Yeah.
him exactly what you fucking know about him, you fucking piece of shit. You know, like,
Yeah.
tell him exactly who he is, and you know exactly who he is. There's no wondering. There is
Mhm.
knowing what you did and living, yes, living with that shame in a bed where you can't escape it. Like that's what I
Right.
wanted from that moment. And but I do like he just fucking bitch slaps him twice. And you're like, love it, Perry. I love that this was part of your mission. It was like,
Yeah.
here's what I'm gonna do while I'm here.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, dude.
uh,
Gets dark there at the
but
end, but I
there it
mean,
does, but then we get a little comedic bow in the epilogue also of just like
yeah.
we get they're in their office. I love that his hair is grown out. They've tied his
Ye
hair up like Gay Perry's hair is back
and
up and
Harry's
he's like
still missing a finger. That bit throughout the thing of him losing the finger over and over again, to get it, like, cut the way that it gets just slammed in the door and severed, he gets it sewn back on only to get it ripped back off, and then a dog eats. That's just a great bit throughout the film.
it is a great bit. It made me feel so bad though because very sad, not fun at all fact. Somebody slammed my grandmother's hand into a car door once. And so every time I see that, I think of my poor, sweet
Oh,
grandmother saying nothing. She was a fucking superhero. Like somebody slammed her car in her finger in a car door and she was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Like she barely reacted. And it didn't chop off, thankfully, but it was always hurt really bad. And like,
jeez.
she didn't fucking react. She didn't react. Anyway, I just needed to tell y'all in this moment that my grandma's a superhero. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Oh.
But their little end scene there is really cute. They have this like
Mhm.
again, the buddy cop continues. You're also like, why did Perry keep you? I'm super confused. But you just it alludes to this like future detective agency where it's like
I'm
this smart
surprised
smassy
they
guy and
never
this
maybe
guy.
because it's Shane Black, but then again, he did 4 Lethal Weapons, so I'm surprised they never tried to do a sequel to this.
Yeah, I am too. I could go for it. I could have gone for it all day long. Like I
Yeah.
would have watched the shit out of that.
I mean, I'm kind of glad that it's a standalone because I think, like everything else, the first one's always going to be the best. But I would watch another movie of Gay Perry and Harry hanging out together solving mysteries.
Or even like, I don't know, it gives me kind of Man from Uncle series vibes as well. Like you
Mm.
could do some little like 30, 45 minuters of their little antics, get a few handful of one-liners out of Perry here and there. I could just listen to Perry's one-liners on a loop. They're hilarious.
The pistol whip scene where Harry gets pistol whipped, even though Perry is the one talking. So then when he gets the gun from the guy, he's like, I hit you for nothing. Isn't that weird? But when he does the Russian roulette bit and shoots the
Oh
dude on
my
the
god.
first try,
And the 8%. And he's like, who taught you math? It's not
that bit
8%.
is,
Who taught you
yeah,
math?
great, great
Also,
stuff.
like you just make it look like you if you ever want to Russian roulette someone, guys, like you make it look like you put the bullet in there to freak them out. You don't actually put the bullet
He's
in
like,
there.
yeah, he calls him out. He's like, you put a live round in there? And he's like,
Right.
there's an 8% chance. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Goodness
Grammar and
gracious.
math are not his strong suits, you know what I mean?
No.
They're not his vibe.
Whew.
All right. Well, we have just
Gushed.
raved, I feel
Yeah.
like, raved, gushed about this one because
Is
it's such a
gushed
great
another one
time.
of those words like juicy that I'm not allowed to say?
Gush is not bad, but you know what they said on this? Fun fact. They said ungooshed about somebody's head, and that was the weirdest thing that I think I've ever heard. He was like, the ungooshed head. And I was like, what does that mean? I've never heard it before, but no, gushed is fine. Gushed is fine. But anyways, we have gushed, yes, for an hour here and had a great time. I love this movie. What's your rating?
Okay. It's very hard to distinguish my personal rating from, like, objectively where I would put this. It's so
Well,
much
just
fucking
give your
fun. I've
just give your
Yeah,
personal. This whole thing is a personal rating. What do you mean? Give
I
your
don't
rating.
okay. Well, first off, there's one line of dialogue that we did not address that I just needed the quote of, "What do you do?" And he says, "I'm retired. I invented dice when I was a kid," just because he's fucking with, like, the LA actresses. And she goes,
I
"Oh,
know.
cool." Like, takes it verbatim. Love
But
that.
also my favorite part too is when he like when they walk away and he's like, "That it?" And she's like, "Yep."
Yep.
Like,
Not interested.
all
Yeah.
done.
So I'm gonna put this. I think, at an 8. Like, my heart wants to put it at an 8.5 because I really fucking really like this movie. But I think it's not perfect. Like, the mystery, even though it ties up well, I think there could have been more hints of what was happening. The cinematography is fine. I think Shane Black, first time directing, again, it feels very 80s. There's not any super beautiful shots or anything fancy about it, but the script
Yeah.
is so tight. The humor is incredible. The performances are great. So yeah, I think I'm going to go 8. What about you?
I give it a solid 9. I have the best fucking time with this
Wow.
movie.
Okay.
I love this movie. I think it's so well written. It's so fun. Their dynamic is so good. I just like literally as I'm listening to his lines, when I on rewatch, I still am fucking giggling, laughing like ridiculous. And I think the wrap up, my big critique is like you said, at the end there's a lot of wrap up, and I love his call out of, listen, I saw Lord of the Rings, I'm not going to make this movie end 17 times, which great, he didn't make it end 17 times, but he definitely made it end 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say like the wrap up could use some work.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I just have the best time watching this movie. It's so funny. I like the aesthetic. It's got like a sexy neo-noir, very LA kind of energy. I just have a really good time with this one. I think I like a solid 9.
You and RDJ, apparently it's his favorite of his own films that he's been
I
in.
was gonna
So I
say
think
it
he
is
would
one
rate
of
it a
his,
9 or a 10 too.
and I think it was his. I think also for him, it's like his first big comeback, and it was really good. And so
Yeah, he understands how this helped to sort of relaunch his
right.
career.
Why would you not love this one? I feel like
you and RDJ might have peer pressured me into a 8.5. I'm gonna bump it up.
Yeah,
8.5. Okay.
we got him. We got him, you guys. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining this month. This was a super fun time, I think, and we do want to have more actor months and actress months, and I think this is the first one we really got to dedicate some time to one person, so it was a good time.
Yeah, it's a blast.
All right. Well, I would tell you guys what to come back for next week, but we're way ahead of the game in terms of recording. I'm really proud of us, actually.
Yeah.
Not for nothing, I'm going to be out of the country for a hot minute, so we actually don't know what June's going to be. And I don't even know if we're going to ask for opinions between now and then. I don't know. Maybe
we're recording this in early May. So in a week's time for you guys, I'm going to be so much more tan. I'm going to have totally different hair. It's going to be great.
I'm going to come back looking totally different. I'm going to say mate a lot. You know what I mean? I'm going to Sydney, you guys. Anyway, so we'll let you know when we know. But either way, please come back and check us out. But in the meantime,
follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things. We love all the interaction we get with you guys on Instagram, TikTok, if you're one of those people, which we're not.
You
can always email us.
Are you messaging us there? We don't know about it.
Yeah, you're going to have to email us to let us know to check our TikTok. We drink and we watch things pod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want the video portion, you can go check us out on YouTube, or you can do it on Spotify video.
Indeed. All right. Well, for now, though, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.
I have one last sip.